So I am joined today by Nina. Thank you for joining me.
You're so welcome, Emma. I'm so happy to be here.
Lovely to see you. Before we get into talking all things personal brand and visibility, we'd love to understand a bit more about your career journey and your journey through marketing and ultimately kind of what led you to focusing on this particular area.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it is a bit of a journey, a 30-year one now, which is quite interesting. We all have one. I didn't obviously start out being an author and speaker, but I started my career in marketing back in the 90s in the tourism industry and then in the sports marketing industry. So at the ripe old age of 25, I became the general manager of a German sports marketing agency, working on the Olympics and doing
How cool.
very cool stuff for
Yeah.
international organisations. So it was the absolute dream job for a young marketer. And I just had the right combination of skills, which was the ability to speak German, understanding tourism, because there was Olympics and working with German businesses and sponsors and doing and marketing and public relations and all of that goes into it. So it was a very steep learning curve for me in my mid-20s. Managing a team that I think I was the second youngest person of. Anyway, all of that, fast forward, then at the end of that, my contract finished and I decided to start an agency. But it wasn't intentional. It was just that I got asked to do all these cool projects and I was thinking, wow, this would be, a really cool thing to do. And, we just went in and 20 years later, well, now it's 26 years later because I started in end of 2000. So it had lots of iterations, ups and downs and rounds. And, so internet marketing really evolved because it was the dot-com boom. And concurrent to that, between 2000 and 2008, I also had a dot-com startup that I grew pre-social media days, very early days of the internet into a global brand. And sold that around the time during the birth of my second child. So I did that while I was running my marketing agency. And then I had a season where my agency was very much in the full service. It was a boutique agency, very much in the B2B, professional services, tech heavy client base. And I also had a season through there where I was running the agency while also having children. So I had 5 children between the years of 2007 and 2014. So
that's a lot of juggling.
It was a lot. So
yeah,
I've come to realise I'm very much a systems thinker, and there's a really good reason for that, and a really efficiency, leverage, all of that, and it's definitely been honed by the logistical needs of running a household with 5 young children under 8. So that was that. And then obviously as they grew, I had a little bit more capacity and time and things like that to really evolve and explore. And I went through a season after that period where I was really thinking about, I was seeing how the marketplace was shifting, and I'd never really done a lot in terms of personal branding for myself. I'd certainly done it for my clients and elevating them as thought leaders and getting them out there. But I realised I could see the writing on the wall in terms of, how things were moving. People were way less interested in logos and websites and corporate speak and starting to become a lot more interested in the people behind the brand. And that necessitated, obviously, a lot of work for us in the agency, in the content marketing space and thought leadership space. But then I also went through a very personal reinvention journey where I, was coming through what was a, fairly intense and challenging season of my life going, okay, what's next and what I want to do and where do I want to build my future. And so I started back around 2016 to really actively build my personal brand and train people in that area as well. So I'm very much a, walk the talk kind of person. I don't tell people what they should do. I'll go and do it first and then reverse engineer, hack what I did and what did and didn't work, and then train others. So and digital. And and building a personal brand was a big part of that. And I did some other, social enterprise, a few other things. And long story short, really built my own personal brand off the back of a number of initiatives. And then in 2018, my agency was very blessed to be named Marketing Agency of the Year at the AMI Marketing Excellence.
Congrats.
And it was really around that time that I realized I was still very much hiding behind the logo, and I wanted to do more, but that involved me being more visible as a founder and me being more visible as a person. So we'll get into that later, but that did not come naturally for me in any way, shape or form. So I am down the traditional full service marketing agency and offboarded, staff and clients and all the rest as that happened very organically. And so I was doing Marketing Me, and then the methodology that I took, which was what we used to do in the agency that clients used to pay a lot for. And this was back, going back 8 years ago before, content repurposing was a thing. And I literally spent 3 months hacking the system and setting up teams, maybe even longer, and realized that, a lot of people didn't have the, funds to pay a large agency to do that, or any agency to do that. And you needed a team back then. And I decided to reverse engineer and teach people how to do it themselves. And that was the foundation of what's now known as Marketing Me. And as part of that, there was a strong content element. But as a marketer and as a brand strategist for all those years, you can't go and market something if you don't have the brand foundations right. And that very much came when you're doing that for a person. It's a very different situation than when you're doing it for a business or an organization or a multi-person entity. And so I needed to go through that process myself, which I did. Then I started teaching that process to other people, and I found it incredibly effective. And we'll probably talk about some of the reasons why and the impact that that had. And so then I decided to write the book. So I wrote the book Marketing Me, which I have a copy here. If it's, I haven't got it. It's on my website. It's an awesome book. It's really needed now. So that's, really continued to write, speak, train, recently founded a software platform as well to support the work for expert-led brands and founders in the logistical space and the infrastructure, taking the principles to market. And I just continue to serve amazing clients globally and speak, and I just really am finding it fascinating in this AI-driven landscape that we're in. It's very much like a watch this space, just see how evolving and adapting. So that's basically my journey in a nutshell. There's a lot more that's happened in the cracks and alongside of that, but from a pure marketing perspective, I think that's a good place to start, and probably gives people a sense for why, when we do talk about my approach to personal branding, why my fundamental philosophy and approach is that it needs to be easeful, needs to be gracious, it needs to be authentic, it needs to fit with your life, but it also needs to be strategic and leveraged and really, designed to accomplish a specific purpose, because otherwise why are you doing it, right? That's the lens that I've gleaned through my life experience that I bring to the work, and I'm really excited to dive deeper into personal branding for marketers today.
Yeah, it's really interesting that you called the book Marketing Me, and I love that title for the reason that I do find that a fair proportion of people are kind of put off by the term personal branding. I think they find it a bit icky, or I don't know, they just don't love the terminology. Where has that term come from? Have you found kind of pushback from people as well, that they just don't love the sound of it, as it were?
The sound of the word personal branding, do you?
Yeah.
It's really interesting. If we think about the etymological root of the word branding, it is actually an ancient, like a Nordic it has the semantic origin or the etymological meaning or whatever the word is. Stamp it printed on them to show who owned that and whose property it was. And so obviously branding is very much, evolved in how mainstream understanding of the term and how it is.
Yeah.
But if we look at that in the context of personal branding and marry the two, we're looking at this idea of having a mark or a recognizable symbol or signature or something on ourselves, metaphorically, not literally, that identifies who we are and who we belong to. And I think it's really beautiful that in the sense of personal branding, because we're doing it for ourselves, not someone else, we get to put that identity tag on ourselves. And so the whole idea of what personal branding is, and I'll probably give you my take on that before I
please
answer the question about marketing me. Personal branding is not, it's evolved so much, and it's really not about what a lot of people think on the surface level personal branding is, which is that's not it. It's a part of it and it needs to be congruent with everything else. But really at the end of the day, what your personal brand is it's how people, what people know about you and how people feel about you. And it's the marriage of those things. And so, Jeff Bezos is famously attributed to saying, don't know whether he actually did or not, but a lot of people quote him saying, and that definitely speaks to what I was saying about what people know about you and feel about you. But I like to extend that and take that a step further and say your personal brand is actually also what gets you in the room. And so if people don't know what you're about and they don't have an affinity with who you are and that they don't have that good vibe check, can, discuss that in more detail in a bit of that professional, but I like to just call it what it is.
Exactly,
We have these BS detectors that are very finely attuned. We know we can filter out what's legit, what's not, what's congruent, what's not. Is it real? Is it fake? Is it, manufactured? These are all the questions that, people, not just our audience, but our networks, our peers, everyone, are constantly, they're running like tracks in the back of our brain to, obviously to keep us safe and stop us from wasting time on things that are not going to serve us. And so in terms of that, the brain is continually answering those questions. And if the personal brand, if there's an incongruency there, then it just affects everything. It's like, doesn't matter how good you look or how polished you are or how eloquent you are or all the rest. And like AI has just taken that to a whole nother level. We can talk about that if we have time. But so personal branding is really, really important. That's the essence of what it is. And when we think about marketing is about really communicating strategically a message to usually a group of people for a particular purpose. And so when marketing is really the execution of our personal branding, in a sense that we need to do something with it. We have it, whether we like it or not.
Yeah.
We all have one. It's talking for us, working for us or not, whatever the case might be. The only worst thing than not having any visible personal brand is having an incongruent or not working for you personal brand. And so the idea of marketing me came up through this process that for anything to be effective, any marketing to be effective, it needs to be congruent. And for any brand to be resonant, there needs to be congruence. And so a lot of people jump so quickly to the tactical and the execution without really understanding what the foundations are of what the brand is and what it stands for and what it represents. And so understanding how it's different in the marketplace and understanding how to articulate that elegantly and express that. And that's a journey we need to go on ourselves first before we can start sharing that with the world, right? And that came off the back of the journey that I went through from, around that time when I was, in doing the whole identity piece and stepping out from behind the logos and the service of everyone else to actually realizing, well, who am I and how am I going to show up in this world? And so that's why I love the whole idea of marketing me, because in this.
Yeah.
Yes, it's a book about marketing, but it's as much a book about finding out got the process of going through and understanding your essence through the lens of personal branding, obviously, before then, and then how to use that and share that with the world. So I don't get caught up too much on semantics. Do people like this term or do they not like this term? You know, I would also, posit that personal positioning is separate to personal branding. It's really the decided act of how and where you want to position yourself in the market, but you need to have the brand in order before you talk about personal positioning as well. So whatever mainstream terminology is the flavor of the month, I'm like, have at it, that's great. But what we're talking about is a functional activity of how people relate with you in the world in a professional context. So whether that's for your job, for your business, for your career opportunities, your side hustle, your legacy work, your cause, people are going to know something about you, feel you about something, and you get to control that and you get to influence that. And so, that's what I talk and share about, how to do that in an impactful but authentic and leveraged way.
I think the thing that really kind of stands out there, and obviously there's a lot, but the one point that really kind of hits home is that it's happening whether you like it or not. Just because you don't want to do it, or it feels like you said, maybe it feels too effortful, or you don't want to step out from behind the brand, whatever the reasoning might be, doesn't mean that it's not happening. It just means that you're actually not able to influence or control the messaging, the positioning, the brand. And I just think that is such a key point, particularly for people who do feel a bit, I don't know, either uncomfortable about the idea or feel that, maybe it just sounds like a bit too much like hard work or additional work to the job that they're already doing.
Well, like to that point, there's two things that I'd say to that. One is when you embrace the mindset, and a big part of that is, what I unpack and talk about in the book, is when you embrace the mindset that it's really about going from doing to being, that relieves a lot of pressure and stress and anxiety and all like overwhelm. And then secondly is that you have to, if you are doing it for a commercial purpose, like one of my fundamental beliefs is you have to make it sustainable as well.
Yeah.
And so the fastest way to do that is to have your personal brand so congruent with who you are, which is the only way to be effective anyway, that just by virtue of doing what you're doing, you're building an awesome, distinct, unique, valued personal brand. And then, if we have a chance, we can talk about the tactical side. But, I do believe that when you're a person brand versus, an organization with a tech team and things like that you need a very simple system that you can do in an hour a week or so, because otherwise it's not something that you can just put in a big effort and do this massive sprint and put yourself out there and set the bar really high. And honestly, and I've seen this time and time again, hundreds of people, like whatever, they do it, but they can't sustain it. And I do not see anybody sustain that unless they've got a really big team, which most people don't. And so you have to have the bar really low, and then it can go to being easeful and enjoyable. You tap into the bits about it that you enjoy the most and start to see it as, this is who I am, this is what I like to do, and this is how I like to share the impact of my work.
Yeah.
That feels so much easier than, I've got to go build a personal brand.
Exactly.
I've got to put myself out there and blah, blah, blah.
Yes. And to your point about authenticity, it's such an important thing and it's such an important word, but I do feel maybe in the age of AI, it's in danger of becoming a little bit kind of overused, but it's the right word to use, that if you're doing this properly, it's you. You're not manufacturing something. It is who you are, what you do, what you stand for, and the work that you deliver. So it actually shouldn't feel particularly effortful, particularly if you've got a good system and all of the stuff there that you said. But it shouldn't be like this standalone thing that you have to kind of manufacture, because it should be you.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right. The word authenticity has had such a bad rap over the last few years. It's just like, what people think is authentic means, oversharing,
Yeah.
trauma dumping, or showing what all the mess or whatever it is. And that's actually not it. Like, honestly, like it's really, really quite simple when you think about it. It's not about oversharing, but nor is it about like overprotecting either. But like, and you know, I did created for that purpose a whole training called Authenticity Amplified.
Yeah.
Actually see what does authentic mean is really being you, but the parts of you that make sense to share and the parts of you that feel good to share. There's no obligation to open up your whole life to the internet or to your network if you're not online. Like, and I've just like put that in there as well, which is you don't have to be on social media to build a personal brand. I'll say that. With plenty of people who are like not social, and that is irrelevant from personal. It's not completely irrelevant. It's a fast track execution tool.
Yeah.
Do it correctly, but it's just literally that. It's a tool. But yeah, so having but this whole idea that, you know, we've kind of, you know, entered this Truman Show like reality where the whole life has to be under a microscope. No freaking way. I like to keep my life private. There's certain things that I'll be open to talking about, other things not. It doesn't really matter one iota of difference, but it's about choosing the things that are going to feel easiest for you to share and light you up, but also resonate with your people and make commercial sense. I mean, that's a really big thing as well. You know, sharing what you had for breakfast and trying to build an Instagram profile as an influencer, unless that's, you know, your jam, is for most marketing professionals is not achieving the end goal of helping people understand why you're unique, why you're different, why you're, you know, trustworthy, why you're an expert. And so there's a balance to be struck, you know, between being boring and just professional and then people don't want to engage anyway, showing some personality, but in a strategic way. So that's what I have to say on that.
Yeah, and you're spot on. And I think somehow the idea has become that if you're not showing all of it, then you're somehow inauthentic. But that's not the case at all. As you said, there's a commercial reason for what you're doing, and some parts of your life are going to be completely irrelevant to that. So why would you, as you said, introduce what you had for breakfast unless it's relevant to what you actually do? I don't know, maybe you work for a cereal company or whatever. But I think that's how it's kind of become a bit interwoven, hasn't it? That if I don't show everything, then I'm not being authentic. But the other thing that you touched on before that I wanted to come back to, because again, I think this comes up a lot when you start to talk to people about, you know, being more visible, kind of putting themselves out there, is that not everyone automatically feels comfortable with that idea.
100%.
And actually a large proportion of people don't necessarily feel comfortable with that idea. And you mentioned that when you first started doing this for yourself, that was exactly how you felt. So how did you overcome that? Like, tell me how you did it.
I'll validate that by also giving two big reasons why this is especially applicable and relevant for marketers, because I think this is supposed to be a marketing audience, right? And I work, a really large chunk of the people that I work with are very accomplished marketers. So whether that's like global SVPs or CMOs, agency owners or consultants, like who are seasoned and excellent at what they do, right? But when it comes to themselves, they were like me, been doing it for 20 years for other people, do amazing work for clients, people, you know, who are employed, they do amazing work for their peers and their colleagues and their employer. But when it comes to themselves, oh my gosh, it's a different kettle of fish.
Totally.
Two reasons for that. One is that we are trained to be excellent. We want that we want to apply that to ourselves. You know, we don't want to be the hairdresser with the messy hair, right?
Yeah.
The plumber with the leaky tap. And so this thing of like, we don't want to do it not well, but also we realize we need to do it. And increasingly more, it's just part of like business now, whether you're an employee, or whether you're starting out, whether you're a graduate getting your first job, whether you're transitioning from seasoned marketer to board roles, or whether you're starting an agency or a side hustle, or whether you've got a company and it's not even marketing, but as a founder, you've got to be the face of that. Everybody has to show up in some way, shape or form, right? And so as marketers, there's this excellence gap that we feel, because, when we do it for people and organizations or teams, we've got a team at our disposal, and then all of a sudden, whoops, it's us. So, and the second thing is a lot of marketers haven't completely embraced the notion that what they do bring is something really different and unique to everyone else.
Yes.
And that's been for me the most beautiful part of watching people uncover that through the Marketing Me process of really understanding what really makes you unique and how is that congruent with all the aspects of your life, your professional life, your personal life, like there's through lines that happen. And then, how do you then express that, like visually and verbally and positionally, not making up words here, but in a way that, is really congruent with you.
Yeah.
So, like in an AI world, it's like what you present and what you share publicly, do people get the same vibe when you show up and walk into the room? Or when you appear on a podcast? Like if they put you in a room, you on a podcast, or you in a video, and then you on a blog and you in social and you being in a quoted publication or whatever it is together, does it say the same story and does it have the same feel? And so getting that uniqueness and that distinction down, so many marketers are unique. And whether it's by virtue of their expertise or their passions and just their lived experience, makes so much of a difference. And so when you get that, that is the biggest confidence booster, confidence shifter, to your point and your original question. Like that, it's not trying to manufacture of, I've got the knowledge now and now I can do it. Like most marketers don't build a personal brand, not because they don't have the strategy or have the know-how. Like I run training for the AMI on personal branding for the company's top professional marketers. They are super switched on, super smart. The reason why they're not building their own personal brand is not because of knowledge or knowing what to do. It's, in that case, very largely a confidence thing or a capacity thing. And, those things are interlinked, obviously. But yeah, when you get the confidence thing down, and the confidence comes through having clarity. Like if you don't have clarity, you feel like you're in a fog of all the shoulds and all the rest. When you get the clarity, that gives you the confidence to actually start to form and shape what your brand to be. And then later on, go start to look at the application and the strategy and the consistency and all of that. We do look at the strategy earlier, but the consistency and all the systems. But don't just start putting things out there because it's going to not make sense, right?
Yeah.
We need to be clear on who we are. We need to be clear on why we're doing it. Is it and how we want to be perceived in the marketplace. And that's also where the positioning comes in. So we want it to be congruent with who we are as a brand, aligned strategically with our positioning, whether that's for the next role or the next chapter or the next season of business growth or whatever that is. We want to take what we've got now and align it with that so it's congruent but also strategic. And when you get the clarity piece locked in, then as a marketer, everything becomes easier because then you're very capable to go and join the dots.
Oh, yeah.
Work out how to execute on that. So marketers have an advantage, but they're also kind of starting sometimes behind the lines. So, but once they get up to speed with that in the confidence department, the rest is like home and hose. Then I could give you so many examples of how I've seen incredible marketers have all the feels about, being nervous to share something or put themselves out there. And the moment they get that clarity, it's like the lights go on. They share something, they step into their power. It feels good, it's aligned, and then the rest is history.
Yeah, I see that too with my own clients and they're mainly marketers as well. And it's exactly what you say. It's a mixture of confidence, but actually the initial perceived lack of confidence is from, and I've heard people say quite often, well, I actually don't know what makes me unique, or they'll touch on something and they'll say, yeah, but that thing isn't unique. Well, that one individual thing might not be, but if you start to stack a few different things on top of each other, and as you said, your journey, your experience, all of those things stacked, they are unique. And actually by definition, as a human being, you are unique. So you will there are things in there. Sure, there's going to be things that overlap with other marketers. Of course, you're in a similar profession, but actually, as you said, being really clear on what your differentiators are, and then building a language around that. Exactly as you say, I think that's what gives people confidence to kind of go, okay, now I understand how I can actually talk about that. And now I feel confident to actually put that out there. The other thing that I wanted to touch on, Nina, and I know it's something that you've spent quite a lot of time already. We're only in, what are we? Early February this year, but spent a lot of time over the Christmas and New Year holidays putting together your thoughts and insights of kind of where you see the market going and all of the many changes that feel like they're kind of coming down the tube at the moment. Can you give us a bit of a flavour of what you've got in there and what you see as the key insights for 2026?
Yes, absolutely. And in a nutshell, I really map out the really big shifts and changes that are happening in the areas of visibility and discovery, and audience attention, how trust is building, and just how the macro landscape has changed and what that means for us as marketers, as brands, doing it for others and also doing it for ourselves. And so the three, if I were to distill it into three big principles, like having all the polished facade and all the checks and balances, even if it's not a facade, even if it's the actual thing is good and solid and polished and authentic and congruent, that in itself is now not just enough to actually get your message out there. Like in the past, there was a over indexing on social, and social is great. It's been a fast track, but its role is changing very, very fast, and how people are consuming for business as well is really changing. And so we're moving from a visibility first to really thinking about, yes, visibility is important and how we're getting in front of people, but also what's the substance behind it, and people are, and how are you being discoverable in this AI era? How are you getting people to talk about you and being shareable? So I have a whole framework, and it's unpacked very clearly in this insights report about how to be visible, how to be findable, and how to be shareable, and how all of those are shifting. They've always been there in different ways, but how those three elements are shifting in the AI-shaped landscape, and where the leverage points are, and what not to waste a whole lot of time on. The effort to impact ratio is very, very poor these days.
Yeah.
And where the opportunities are. And then literally there's like a 90-day action plan that I spell out in the insights report to help people take it to market. So really the big shifts are audiences are flooded with information. Attention is tanking. It's harder to get through. It's harder to get trusted. And so the invitation is really to have a personal brand that people want to share. And so then I unpack the elements of what goes into that. So obviously we're on a time pinch, so I can only criticize it to an answer. But the big that would be the big takeaway is, trust and effort are two big gates that we need to go through as marketers, as brands, to get on people's radars. And how do we do that in an attention or dilapidated environment?
Yeah. And you're happy for me to share the link to that, so people can download a copy? Yeah, great.
Yeah, I had so much fun because I wrote it. It's very, substantive in terms of the insights, but my personal challenge was, can I make it scannable in about 3 minutes? And you get all the main points from it without having to read it. So it's designed to be able to scan as well as to read, and just glean and just take what you need. And it's kind of like there's a how-to, which bits of the document to go to, based on where you're at. And so absolutely to just use it and read it and take it in for sure, anyone who wants it.
Yeah, great. I'll link that. And yeah, to your point there, it's a really good combination of, there's incredible detail and underpinning and a lot of thought through ideas, but also, as you said, it's really scannable. You can jump to sections, and even just visually the way it's laid out, it's very easy to consume. So yeah, I highly recommend people have a look at that. Final question, Nina, and it is always the final question here, and that is, what do you know now that you wish you knew then?
Yeah. What I wish I knew then that I know now is that you are going to get there, and there is a path, and putting one step in front of the other, one foot in front of the other, and metaphorically that means like one decision after the other, or one action after another will take you in the direction you want to go. And sometimes there'll be, forced pause breaks or forced meanders or, things that we have to, walk around or overcome. But by continuing to taking those steps, we will get there. And sometimes we don't know where those steps are. Sometimes we only know what the step in front of us is.
Yeah.
And I used to think, like, honestly, in my 20s, I gave you a bit of a heads up on kind of the type of roles that I had. And I mean, I think I was fairly competent for my age, but I thought I knew so much. And now I look back and I'm like, I knew so little. I mean,
we all thought that, didn't we?
Gosh, but I also thought that getting from where I was to, I wouldn't say where I'm at, because this is not what I ever had in mind for myself, but it's where life led me, and it couldn't have been better and more aligned and more matched with what I wanted. So what I thought I wanted wasn't really what I wanted.
Yeah.
But like life has a way of sifting and sorting that out and bringing you the best path in a way that will align with your potential when you take those focused steps forward. And you don't even need to know what all of the steps are. You don't need the full roadmap, but you need to keep going and believing in yourself and believing that you're here and that you're unique and have a purpose, and that you just will take those steps and you will lean into that, and it will be joyful in a different way to that than you expected, but more joyful than you expected.
Yeah, I love that. That's such a great answer. And that's been true in my own life as well. And I think the other thing that I think is really great about that piece of advice about, just taking the next step is that it feels less overwhelming. Like, you don't have to have it all figured out. You don't need to know what the next 50 steps look like. How could you? But just the next one, and then the next one. And it just feels so much more manageable and approachable than needing to have it all figured out from the get-go. I don't know many people who do have it all figured out from the get-go.
We're still figuring it out, Emma.
Exactly. Thank you, Nina. Thank you so much for joining me and sharing your insights and your expertise. So interesting. And I'll link to below the insights reports and also further information on your website and Marketing Me and all of those things too.
Beautiful. Thanks so much for having me today. I really enjoyed chatting with you. And
too. You're welcome. Thank you.
It's been great to be in your world and be connected. So thank you. And
you're welcome. Chat soon.